Okay, welcome back. Unit 3, Video 7. This video is about conformity mechanisms. And so what we're going to talk about, we have two big points in this video. First of all is that conformity mechanisms are based on the intimacy of the people who are involved in the situation. And second point is that there are different goals in a situation depending on the level of intimacy of the people that you're interacting with. Okay, so I'm going to illustrate this with a question, which is what determines how I act when I approach someone walking across campus. Now, obviously at this point, you know that it's the social structure and it has to do with the status that I'm in. And we talked about the complexity that's added when we add in master status. And I've talked to you about the fact that what I do is I walk across campus, I make eye contact, or I look up, see somebody, I drop my eyes, I get about 5 yards away, I look up, smile or say hi, drop down, and then keep going. All right, but that's only part of it, and here's where the complexity comes in. Imagine what's been implied in this example is that I don't know that person, but what if it's my wife? If I'm walking, now the situation is the same. There's an individual over there that I'm walking toward, and I'm walking toward that person, and if I drop my eyes down and ignore her, then look up, say, hey, drop my eyes down and keep walking, like that obviously isn't going to work, right? It's stupid. So the issue that we have right now, and this is where we're going to introduce conformity mechanisms, is that my behavior has to be different, even though the situation will be patterned. If it's my wife, I will act in the exact same way every time. If it's a stranger, I will act in the same way every time. But the way I act is different depending on those two things. So let's talk about conformity mechanisms right now. So what I have below here, I've only got the top half of our machine right now. And we're focusing on the interaction order. And what we have here is what I call in my classes a continuum of intimacy, from stranger over here all the way up to spouse over there. It doesn't have to be stranger and spouse. What you have to be thinking about is you could order every person that you will interact with in this day along a continuum, from a person that you drive past that you are never going to meet again, a stranger, to your neighbor who is somewhere in here probably, to a friend, to like a parent or whatever. And if you happen to be married, ideally the person that you're most intimate with is your spouse. So by intimacy, just to be clear, all I'm talking about is how much they know about you and how much you know about them. A stranger, you know nothing about except for those outward meanings that get attached based on things like social location or status symbols. That's all you know about them. But for me, my wife, she knows literally everything about me. I am not a white man who wears a collared shirt when he delivers lectures. I am a person who she knows all of my fears, all of my aspirations, everything that's hurt me in the past. That's what I mean by intimacy. Okay, and so the main point here is that depending on take any particular situation, so let's stick right now with walking across campus, what you conform to, you're going to conform one way or the other because you're in the social structure. You're influenced to conform, but what you conform to depends on how intimate you are with the people that are in that situation with you. And so there's obviously a huge gray area in the middle, and I'm going to weasel out of dealing with that and give you sort of the ideal type. So at one end and at the other end. At the intimacy end, what we are talking about, what you conform to, the reason the social structure works is you conform to scripts. A script is what we will define as a set of norms, so a set of expected behaviors that go together in sequence. And you can see that with what the way I've described walking across campus, right? The way I've described walking across campus is that you walk up, you notice somebody, and then there's a script. First norm is you drop your eyes. You can't just walk up to somebody making eye contact the entire way. You obviously can do that, but it's not socially acceptable. So you drop your eyes, you walk closer, and you lift your eyes up. That's the second norm in the script. You make eye contact briefly. That's still the second. You then change the way your face looks. You change what you're doing in some way. A little smile, saying hi, nodding, whatever. And then the fourth norm in the script is you drop your eyes again and keep moving on. Now, you can think, and I do this in class, and it's annoying, but it's also illustrative. You can violate that. You can make eye contact the entire time. You can have a big, stupid smile on your face and walk straight up to the person. Like, you're capable. You can start singing to them. You can do anything. It's just, out of all the range of behaviors, you end up, most of the time, most of us conform to that particular script. Okay, so that's it. On this side, and to make the point creepy, but true, this is even true if it's a random sexual hookup with somebody that you've never met before. In that situation, there is a scripted way that these things progress. Generally speaking, it is male initiated if it's a male-female relationship. And I don't want to really go into the details of it, but there's a script that is followed even in that type of situation. So the situation doesn't determine what conformity mechanism there is. The situation, the level of intimacy that you have determines whether you are on a script. If it's a stranger, you're going to be conforming to a script. Okay, other side. So now I am walking across campus, and it's not a stranger, so I don't have that script. It's my wife. I'm over here. So what am I going to conform to? Because we talked about the fact that it's going to be patterned also, right? She has certain expectations of me, and the way it's patterned is based on, rather than scripts, group expectations. Now, my wife and I are a very small group. It's a group of 2. If you add in my kids, it's a group of 4. But that is a group in which they have certain expectations for me. My wife, the way our group is worked out is that we generally, even though we are an affectionate and loving couple, we don't usually display tons of that in public. So if I'm walking up to her in a public situation like walking across campus, I'm going to walk up to her, I'm going to smile, I'm going to approach her. I'm probably not, though, going to hug her or kiss her right there. I'm probably just going to walk up, smile, and we're going to engage in a conversation. And that is scripted. I'm sorry, wrong word. That is expected of me. It's patterned. The pattern, though, is not based on a situational script, but based on the expectations that we in our group have worked out. And interestingly, those expectations differ depending on which member of my family it is. So if I walk up to my son or my daughter, a hug is what is expected. They will expect me to hug them, and I will expect, and I don't mean like there's some weird pressure. I mean, that's just what we have evolved our relationship into. Okay, so to kind of recap what we've talked about, 2 different conformity mechanisms. The conformity mechanisms, the things that make us conform, depend not on the situation, depend on how intimate we are with the people. If I go through every situation in my day only with strangers, I am conforming only to scripts. If I spend my entire day in my house with my family, I will be conforming only to group expectations. It is not the situation, the way we would define a situation, walking across campus, going on a date, any of that stuff that determines whether it is script or group expectation. It's how close we are to those people. Think about, in your life, a first date as compared to a 10th date or a 20th date, or if you're married, a date night. My first date with my wife was not at all the way my dates with her go now, because it was a first date, and so there was a script that I was relying on that involved me opening the car door for her, offering to pay, even at that point she made more money than I do. All of those scripts, all of those norms, we engaged in order. So we followed a script. Nowadays, it is completely based on the relationship that we've built up, how we understand each other, that determines the way we act. Again, in either case, we're still conforming. We're just conforming to scripts on the one hand and group expectations on the other. Okay, so that's big point number one, different conformity mechanisms based on intimacy. Point number two, which is related, is the idea that there is a different goal of the situation depending on intimacy. And again, we're going to go back to our continuum of intimacy. So the goal in any situation, whether it's walking across campus or having a sexual hookup with somebody, if it is a script, if you are not intimate with them, if it's a stranger, the goal here is going to be accomplish the task, which I realize is a kind of a gross way of describing a sexual encounter. But in both cases, what we're talking about here is there is a moment or a situation that we want to execute effectively. God, sorry, this is horrible, but it's true too, in a creepy way. It's true. If I'm walking across campus, I'm trying to accomplish the task of getting from point A to point B. And in doing that, I'm going to follow a script. I'm accomplishing the task, and the other side of it is that the task, and this is crucial. I didn't write this up there, but this is important. The task matters to me more than the individuals in the situation. I'm not concerned with how that person who I'm walking past is feeling. If it was my wife, if I was over here dealing with somebody I'm intimate with, of course I care. But when I'm dealing with strangers, whether it's walking across campus, whether it is a person in a sexual hookup with a random person, accomplishing the task is more important than the individuals within that situation. Okay, so goal of a situation, any situation, from walking across campus to getting on an elevator to sitting before a class starts to a sexual encounter, any of those, the task is more important if you don't know the people. The other side of things, when it's people that you do know, the goal, I got to erase group expectations because this is written huge. The goal of group expectations is to preserve the pack. I'm not getting through a situation. I'm trying to make sure that our pack stays intact. And obviously I'm using vocabulary that harkens back to our evolutionary past. We depended on having a pack in order to survive. And this is a legacy of that. No matter what the situation is, it is more important for me to preserve the pack than to just effectively accomplish a task. If I am walking across campus, I may have someplace I need to go, but if I just look up, make eye contact with my wife, say, hey, what's up, and then keep walking, I have caused a problem with our pack. I may be accomplishing my task effectively, but I'm doing damage potentially to our pack. For that reason, group expectations are going to be oriented toward preserving the pack. uh, that's it. Although there's a horrible consequence that comes with this, and you'll be aware of this if you are a traditional college student, or if you've ever been a traditional college student, and the problem of the stupid choices that people make when they're drinking. I remember, there's a quick anecdote. When I was in college, there was a guy who we were friends with, who, when we would go out partying, he was convinced that he could drunk drive effectively. And he had this strategy for it. He called it thumbs up driving, where he put his hands on the steering wheel like this at 10 and 2, got himself down between his thumbs, and he said, I put one thumb on the center stripe, one thumb on the shoulder, and I just drive between them. Now, so if you get nothing else out of my class, that doesn't work. But the issue here is not his stupidity, it's our stupidity. All of his friends who knew that was dumb, but in that situation, there was a choice we had to make. Do we do the smart thing and say, Brian, that's stupid, we're not doing that? Or do we go along with the group expectations to preserve the pack? The group expectations are, you generally speaking, don't start fights within your pack. You generally speaking go along with people, and obviously alcohol doesn't help with this decision making. If you learn a second thing, it said alcohol doesn't help with decision making. But you can see in this situation that the pressure of the group, and because we're trying to preserve the pack, can lead people to do some really, really stupid things. Okay. Those are my two main points. We've got different conformity mechanisms based on the level of intimacy, from scripts for strangers to group expectations for the people that we're really close to. It's not the type of situation that determines the conformity mechanism. It's how close we are to the other people, regardless of the situation. And that is it. Next time we're going to talk about one other element of the interaction order, and this is going to be what's going on inside of us during our informal interactions. So I'll see you in that video.